So, Mike O'Rourke, radio broadcaster, former worker in the gambling industry. Welcome along to the program.
Hello, Ben. How are you?
I'm very, very good. Long time no see for the two of
Ab-
us.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're looking very
Yeah,
well.
you not too bad yourself, my friend. We'll talk about the shirt that you're wearing a bit later on in the show. For those who can see you
So,
on the
yeah,
video when we get onto that, it is a tense
indeed.
day for a lot of us. But
Mm.
first of all, a report that came out on Friday, some data has been published that the shift in funding for treatment for people who suffer with gambling addictions has moved away from that to deal with the coronavirus pandemic. Now, that on face value is understandable because the pandemic is not so much a silent killer as gambling is. You and I worked together in the gambling industry for many years at the coalface, shall we say. Well, what are your thoughts on this? Is enough done generally to help those who are suffering with gambling problems?
Well, as you know, Ben, one of the first things that happened as we were both moving out of the industry into other avenues was the introduction of advertising, which
Hmm.
was a huge issue for many many years. People were warning about allowing advertising, and now you can't watch a Premiership match. You can't watch any sporting match. You can't even watch Emmerdale without there being constant adverts about betting. And what's even more concerning is well-known sporting and non-sporting celebrities are being used to endorse these as well. So that's a huge concern. Firstly, secondly, as you know, we both know, having worked in the industry, there is a code of conduct that if a person is struggling or is betting too much, and we can think of a multitude of individuals from our past experiences, we're supposed to give them assistance in the industry. We're supposed to give. That just doesn't really happen, does it? Let's
It
be
doesn't.
honest. I
Well,
mean, how many times did in the many years were we told off for giving assistance to people and perhaps saying perhaps you ought to slow down? Is it really wise spending £2,000 on a 1 to 6 or 1 to 7 on when you know they've got a family? You're told as a manager or told as a person who works in the industry, why are you taking one of our favourite customers away?
yep.
Why are you stopping them from? It's all um, about the amount of profit at the end of the day. Even in small shops, I mean, we've worked in some quite small shops with small, I would say, relatively small margins at the end of the day, as compared to say the bigger shops. And even then, there was no sympathy for
No.
the individuals. So, and not enough is being done for people in that situation. And obviously, we all know people and have experienced coronavirus firsthand, whether it's individuals, for instance, my mother wasn't very well, had to have a test. Thankfully, she was negative. Other people that both of us know have been through this terrible crisis, whether it's been affected with a job, whether it's been affected with the insecurity, whether it's an increase in mental health. So we all understand that there have been resources diverted, of course, to fight this virus. But let's be frank, there's no excuse for not supporting individuals in their hour of need with, as you said, this silent killer, which is gambling addiction. Because let's be honest, I mean, the gambling firms are, earning millions and millions of pounds, every year, and um, people do need help, and so it is a disgrace if that is the case, that people are not getting the support that they need. And
I
the
sorry, Mike. I can understand from a government priority view, the funding's got to go here in the here and now.
yeah,
This is a worldwide pandemic. These are unprecedented times. I understand that. But from the point of view of the gambling industry, let's just do a little timeline here, and let's see if the two of us and our audience can spot the moment where this actually does make sense, and we all feel like Columbo because we've worked this out. In 2007, on July the 1st, we all remember that. as the day that smoking was banned in public places.
Mm.
It was a Sunday. I remember it was a Sunday because it's my birthday, July 1st. So I remember it vividly. And so the pubs, clubs, restaurants, betting shops, how they were ever allowed smoking in betting shops with that much paper around is mind-boggling. But there we go. That's by the by.
Well, and the effects of lung cancer, but anyway,
Of course. Well, we're getting sidetracked here, but I remember when the plume cleared from just below the ceiling in the shop I worked in. We realised that over a 30-year period, the ceiling had turned yellow. But don't want to put people off their lunch while listening to that right now. But anyway, so smoking is banned. You can't smoke in public places. Tobacco companies can't sponsor sporting events. They can't advertise on television. Huge tax revenue for the government gone. That tax revenue has to come from somewhere. Fast forward 2 months to September the 1st, 2007, following on from the signing of the Gambling Act in 2005, everything that was once allowed for tobacco is now allowed for gambling because the effects of it are not as visible as they are from the effects of tobacco and smoking. So the government, Labour government at the time, are still getting the tax revenue. They're still getting everything that they want from advertisers. It's just coming from a different direction. And we were told at the time, going back 13 years, my God, where is the time going? But everything changes today. Our industry changes forever. This is the greatest thing ever. It's going to be great. I remember the firm we worked for, and people try and remember this. I'm not going to name them, but they were the first to do an advert with 4 ex-footballers who become big pundits doing an advert when they walked into a greasy spoon cafe. And this was seen as a big thing. The big premiere of our advert is coming on today. Everything's going to be great. But all of this was on the proviso. The government said you can advertise, you can sponsor, you can do whatever you like, but you have to put these safeguards in place to protect the customers. The Gambling Commission was formed on the basis of this, and they have power of authority. You're laughing as I say the Gambling Commission for the sake of those who listen on the radio. The Gambling Commission was formed, and they effectively have power of authority over the entire industry. That's betting shops, bingo halls, places where you see slot machines, casinos. The reason, if you're looking at this on YouTube right now with the video, I always have a background. You think, oh, you're talking about betting, so surely horse racing, greyhounds, football. No, it's these things that are behind me right now. Yeah. The fixed odds betting terminals, which are the cause of the biggest problem with people who have gambling addictions, because you could lose a fortune. We're breaking the fourth wall here. The industry are going to try and come after me for this. I'm sure they are. But these were the big money cash cow for the entire betting industry. We can make as much money as you want, providing you look after the customers. That's the deal. Okay. How do we look after the customers? Well, do we go on an intense psychological training course to become sort of counsellors? No. You just have to go up to them and ask them if they think it's getting a bit too much for them. Okay, right. Okay. Well, surely, one of the first symptoms of having a life-changing addiction is denial.
Absolutely.
Is denial. So, do I go up to somebody who I'm on first name terms with, who I get on very well, who I've had a decent working relationship for the past 6 months? Do I go up to that person, put the hand on the shoulder and say, do you think this is getting a bit too much for you? Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Forget the leaflet. Don't forget the leaflet.
The leaflet.
Always give them a leaflet as well.
Yeah, the yellow posters, which have to be on when the fun stops. That's the message that they go for. It's completely ignored by customers who have problems. And so that leads on to trying to seek help from outside of the industry. It leads to going to see their doctors. It means getting referred to help from the NHS, which is now not there because of the coronavirus. It's a vicious circle. Now, here's the question. And now a lot of people may not know this, but there is a facility in place in gambling establishments. If a customer feels themselves, bear in mind I've just mentioned denial here, if the customer feels themselves that this is getting on top of them, where they can do a thing called self-exclusion. Now, at this point, the customer, let's say it's a betting shop, it might not necessarily be a betting shop, but it's a betting shop. the customer goes to the counter, says to the manager or the member of staff in charge on the day, I think this is getting on top of me. I need to do something about it. Can you help me? Once that happened in my entire time working there, which on and off, because I worked for two firms, came to about 10 years. Once.
Same here. Once. As you just mentioned, Ben, it's incredibly difficult to have a chat with a customer who is going to deny that they have a problem. And even if they do finally come around to admitting that there isn't a problem, as an employee of these big companies, the pressure that people are under to make sure that they are maximising their shop's revenue as much as possible. And if you take 2 or 3 big customers out of that, then you've got someone tapping you on the shoulder and saying, what the hell are you doing? And, well, duty of care. Well, you've got to care for our profits. That's the swings and roundabouts. And it's interesting because a lot of medics have said about the 4 emblems you've got behind you as being the equivalent of crack cocaine. That's how powerful they are. They have the same buzz as some Class A drugs with individuals. So we have to start treating this a lot more seriously as the problem that it is. For the listeners of your show, who may not know what the industry is like, the majority of shops are open now on Sundays until some ludicrous time at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock even on a Sunday.
Because of these things.
Because of those things.
Nothing to do with sports. Nothing to do with horse racing.
In the middle of winter, people have got families, want to get home in the middle of storms, etc. I mean, we had one of the worst winters ever this particular winter, and there would be thousands of people across the country and hundreds of people across the Midlands, in your patch even, Ben, around here in South Wales, members of staff who were denied going back to their families and paid really poor wages to keep them open, with the occasional virtual race open. The horse racing, greyhounds, I mean, but all virtual. And then for those things, and of course, customers would come in, and usually actually be the customers who would come in late at night who potentially would be the ones with problems. But again, there is no real crackdown. The government have now said in recent times that they're going to minimize the amount that you can spend in one spin and also in one particular session. But again, it's very difficult for shop staff to, particularly in a busy shop, to administer that and to police it unless you've got someone on the shop floor. And then it comes back to my point previously. It's difficult for a person who might be just a cashier or might be the equivalent of an assistant manager to do that. So the government have really got to take responsibility for this and treat it as the problem that it is, because medics are saying it's a massive problem, and for the people, the sufferers, of which there are thousands across the country, it's wrecking lives. It's wrecking their lives. They can't pay their mortgages. It leads to family breakdowns, and it can lead to severe mental health problems, and it really needs to be sorted now.
And this is going to sound awful, but as we're being open and honest, from a member of staff's point of view, it's very, very difficult under those conditions. You mentioned people coming in reasonably late at night who may have the problem. Well, From my point of view, on the other side of the counter, I've been there since 8 o'clock that morning. It's nearly 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
it's very, very difficult to care. And I know that sounds awful.
Yeah.
It sounds awful. I've been here all day. I'm out on my feet. It's not just taking bets and paying out winnings. It's promotions. It's looking out for mystery shoppers. That's a big deal. There are things that are going on in the betting industry, and not necessarily for bad reasons, where the firm will employ somebody who is between the age of 18 and 21 to just go into the shop to see whether or not they get ID'd. And they send a report back to the. So you've got to be on your guard for that throughout the whole time. So get to 8:30, 9 o'clock when you're closing at 10, and you see somebody this is the last thing I need, and it sounds awful. And I'm so glad I'm out of it. I'm so glad I'm out of it.
The betting companies have got to take responsibility here. There needs to be managerial leads here in a majority of firms. Doesn't matter which firm it is, whether it's a casino, whether it's a betting shop, whatever. They're going to have area managers, big wigs. It should be their job to have. You should be able to make a tip. You should be able to tip a supervisor off and say, look, a customer might have a problem. Here's the information, and they should make the lead. They should approach the customer from a senior position and say, right, we very much thank you for your custom. However, we have been informed that, and it is a difficult balance because you've got lots of people would say, well, hang on a minute, what about individual person's rights? But I think it's such a problem, as you said, and there'll be lots of people denying that they've got a problem as well. People higher, senior up need to be taking the lead on this. And if they really, really genuinely want people to have a better image of the gambling industry, then they need to be responsible with it. They need to be responsible with it. For instance, if you were to own an arcade or something, or if you were to own a casino and you're a business owner, you would want to make sure that, yes, you're making a profit, but you want to make sure that your customers are very happy, and you want to make sure that your customers are enjoying themselves, not going home and having to basically spill the beans to their partner that they've lost 20 grand or something that potentially will mean that they've got to remortgage the house. So that's where firms have got to be more responsible. And this is where advertising comes in, because it leads customers to going on to online gambling, and then that's when it can really get carried away.
Well, online gambling, things like bingo and what have you, and roulette, those figures have shot up during the pandemic. While the sport was off, people looked for a way to fill the void. And
absolutely. Well, with the shops closed as well, I mean, it's people, but something that is an enjoyable activity for millions of people, for minority, it does become a massive problem. And I completely agree with you and applaud you for highlighting the fact that there needs to be something done.
Right, we'll come back because you are wearing a shirt that's very important to some of us, might not be to others. We'll find out more about that in just a moment. Mike O'Rourke joining us on the week here on Switch Radio. Survival Sunday in the Premier League. We're coming back.